Every leader hits a wall. The difference between those who break through and those who burn out, it's not just skill, it's pattern recognition and pattern awareness, along with the courage to shift. Welcome to Beyond the Pattern, Life and Leadership Unlocked. I'm your host, Bukola, keynote speaker, HR strategist, and leadership coach with over 20 years of experience supporting leaders through growth and transition. I'm also a first-generation Nigerian American. My name, Bukola, means added to the greatness in Yoruba, and this podcast is one way I live that out. We're living in a time of constant acceleration. AI, automation, and performance culture push us to go faster and do more. But speed isn't the same as wisdom, and going fast doesn't mean we're moving forward. That's why I created this space to reclaim the human side of leadership. If you want to stay connected, be sure to follow the show and hit subscribe wherever you're listening. That way you won't miss any episode when it drops every other week. Whether this is your first time listening or you've been following since day one, I'm so glad you're here. Let's get into it. Welcome back to the Shift series. I'm Bukola, and today we're diving deep into what happens when expertise alone isn't enough and how the right shift can change not just your leadership, but your bottom line. Now let's talk about why this matters. In the last year alone, I've helped leaders reduce turnover up to 20% and transform team engagement in under 6 months. Whether you're a founder who can't let go of details, a VP who loses her voice, or a team lead whose best people keep quitting, the patterns are different, but the impact is the same. Stalled growth, lost trust, and missed opportunities. Now let's ground ourselves in the SHIFT framework. I want to recap those 5 steps that are part of a model I use with leaders to move from autopilot to intentional high-impact leadership. Here's how it works. It starts with S, spot the pattern. So the goal here is to slow down and notice what keeps repeating, whether it's tension, missed deadlines, or disengagement. Next is H, hear the lesson. Dig beneath the surface and ask, what is the pattern trying to teach me or the team? Next is I for investigate the impact. Get curious about the ripple effects. Who's affected, what's the cost, and what's not being said. Next is F for find new ways to shift. Experiment with new approaches, pilot a different meeting format, or try a new feedback loop or delegate differently. The final step is T, try the shift until it transforms. The goal here is to stick with your new approach. Track what changes, tweak as needed, and keep going until you see real transformation. Now, you might be wondering why we're not moving on to the next step in the framework just yet. The reason is simple. Investigate the impact is often the game changer for leaders. It's the step most people rush through or skip entirely, but it's where real transformation happens. If you listened to last week's episode, you'll remember Jasmine, a talented leader who was told to be more strategic. Her story is the perfect example of why investigate the impact matters. Jasmine's breakthrough didn't come from learning a new strategy or tool. It came when she paused, really looked at the feedback and asked herself, what's the true impact of my current approach? That's what unlocked her next level as a leader. So today we're staying right here. We're going to break down this step, dig into real stories, and give you practical ways to make investigate the impact a habit. Now, let's slow down and really dig into this step because I believe investigate the impact is where real leadership breakthroughs happen. Most leaders stop at spotting a pattern and maybe asking what it means. But real change happens when you're willing to look at the ripple effects on your team, your results, and even yourself. Now, what does it mean? Investigate the impact. It's about going above and beyond your own assumptions and getting curious about the real story behind the pattern. Ask yourself, who is affected by this? How does this show up in our results, morale, or even turnover? What are people not saying out loud? I want to talk about 3 ways to investigate the impact. The first is gather direct feedback. Don't just guess, you can ask, use one-on-ones, team surveys. Next is to review data. Look at hard numbers, turnover rates, engagement scores, project delays, even absenteeism, because patterns in the data often reveal blind spots in our leadership. Next is observe behavior and energy. Watch for changes in body language, energy in meetings or side conversations. Are people speaking up or shutting down? Are new ideas being shared, or is it the same voices every time? Now, why do some leaders avoid this step? I'll be honest, investigating the impact can be uncomfortable. Sometimes we're afraid of what we'll find. Maybe we worry it'll reflect badly on us or we'll have to change something that's worked for us in the past. But here's the truth. Avoiding the impact doesn't make it go away. It just makes it harder to fix. Okay, I want to leave you with a mini exercise to consider for next week. We can do this together. Write down one pattern you've noticed in your team or organization and list 3 ways you can investigate its impact this week. You can choose one conversation, one data point, and one observation. And the goal is to commit to trying at least one. Okay, I want to revisit Jasmine's journey and see how investigating the impact changed everything for her. If you recall, Jasmine was a talented leader and she was recently promoted and told she needed to be more strategic. Her confidence took a hit. She worried that if she spoke up, people would see her as tactical, the way she'd always succeeded before. In meetings with her manager and her manager's manager, she'd freeze, fall silent, and default to a hands-on tactic that got her promoted in the first place. So what did we do? We talked about how strategic thinking is a skill. It's not a personality trait. And just like she practiced her hands-on role, she could practice being strategic. So she started prepping for meetings, reviewing agendas, brainstorming ideas, and reflecting on where she could add value at a higher level. After each meeting, she'd jot down what worked, what didn't, and what she tried next. We'd review these together, tracking her growth and celebrating wins. Jasmine's breakthrough came when she paused, really looked at the feedback, and asked herself, what's the true impact of my current approach? That's what unlocked her next level as a leader. Now let's shift to another real-world example, Mike. He's a leader who faced a very different but equally challenging pattern. Mike had been with his company for nearly a decade. He was known for operational rigor and getting it done. He was recently promoted to lead a retail business, and he was expected to scale the team and modernize operations. But within 9 months, turnover spiked, morale dipped, decisions stalled. Exit interviews flagged micromanagement and low trust. Mike didn't see himself as the problem until his VP said, "You're getting less loyalty and it's affecting your results." I don't get it. I stay late. I fix things before anyone else even notices. I challenge the vendors. I clear the path, but it still feels like I'm carrying this whole thing alone. Mike, it's clear you're deeply invested in the team's success. When you think about all the effort you're putting in, what do you hope your team is experiencing? I hope they see how much I care, that I'm making things easier for them. And if you step into their shoes for a moment, how do you think they might be interpreting your actions? They say I'm controlling, but I'm the only one who sees the urgency. What do you imagine it feels like for them, though? Working in that kind of urgency, do they feel trusted or maybe just managed? I thought I was helping. I thought they'd appreciate the clarity. Well, clarity is a gift, especially from a leader who's been in the trenches, but sometimes what we intend and what's received can be different. So what do you sense they're actually feeling right now, Mike? Well, according to all the data, like I'm in their way. They feel like I'm in their way. Now, that's a powerful realization, Mike. You were brought in to scale this team, not to carry it alone. So what would it look like to invite them to share the load with you? So what do I do? Just back off and hope it gets better? Not at all. This isn't about stepping away. It's about shifting how you show up. What's one small way you could create more space for their voices in your next meeting? Just one small way you could make room for them to share input in some way. I could start by asking the team what they see as the biggest challenge instead of, jumping in with my own ideas and solutions. I could tee that up front before the meeting so that they know what I'm counting on them for. I love that. If you tried that, what would you be looking for in their response to know it's working? Well, if they actually start talking more, if they bring up things I haven't noticed, that I think that would indicate to me that, they're invested. They're willing to, really take on some of the load. And if you notice yourself wanting to step in or take over, what's one thing you could do in that moment? Maybe say out loud that I'm holding back to hear their ideas. This way they know it. Yes, Mike. That's leadership. Not just having the answers, but making it safe for others to bring their answers forward. So how will you know over the next few weeks if you're building more trust? If people volunteering ideas or even disagreeing with me, I think that'll make a difference. And then if the meeting stop feeling as tense, I think that'll make a difference too. Yes, definitely. Perfect. Let's make that your experiment for the week. Start your next week with a genuine question, pause before responding, and track who leans in and what new ideas surface. We'll check in on what you notice about them and about yourself. And from there, we can just kind of align on next steps. Okay. It's a little uncomfortable, but I can do it. Yeah, discomfort is a good sign, though. It means you're stretching, and that's how real leadership range is built. From insight to action. Now, Mike, as you start to see these shifts in your meetings, have you thought about ways to help the team get to know each other better outside of the day-to-day pressure? Well, what do you mean? What do you mean? Well, sometimes stepping out the usual environment can open up new ways of connecting. Like, what if you brought the team together for an offsite, not just to talk business, but to really get acquainted and build trust? Yeah, that could work. I think some of them have never really had a chance to connect with me outside of work, so that would be good. Exactly. An offsite can be a space for real conversations, shared experiences, and even a little fun. So if you were to design something like that, maybe think about how you could tee that up with the team too. Yeah. No, I'd want them to feel like they're actually a team, not just a group. So I think that's a great idea. Maybe that would even help us start to trust each other more. Yeah, no, that's a great outcome, Mike. That's a really great outcome. What's one step you could take this week to start making that offsite a reality? Yeah, I could float the idea to the team, see what they'd want out of it, and maybe even start looking at dates. Perfect, Mike. And invite their input from the start. Let them help shape the agenda. That way it's not just your offsite, it's theirs too. Okay. No, that works. All right, well, good work. So let's check in next week after your meetings, and we can just kind of see how things are going. Okay, thanks, Coach. Here's why this work matters. 76% of high potential leaders fail due to interpersonal weaknesses, not technical ones. 68% of employees say their manager is more stressful than their workload. Teams with high psychological safety are 27% more likely to report higher performance and 50% more likely to retain top talent. I see these patterns everywhere, whether it's a founder in fintech who couldn't let go of a product decision until we mapped out what only he could do and what he could delegate. I've seen this happen a number of other places too. I want to leave you with a few things to consider, to reflect on in the next week. What's one pattern you see in your own leadership that might be holding you back? Pause and jot it down or record a quick voice memo. This week, try starting one meeting with a question instead of a directive. Notice what changes. Now, before we wrap up, I want to take a few minutes to answer some of the questions I got from a few leaders and listeners. This was through the website, social media, and some of my coaching conversations too behind the scenes. So even though we're not chatting in real time, remember, I love hearing from all of you. So as these questions come up, again, if you're open to me sharing it, please let me know. If you ever want to ask me something or share your own story, just reach out on bukolagantala.com or drop me a message on LinkedIn or Instagram. Question number one is, how do I know if I'm the problem and not just my team? So that's a courageous question. And honestly, it's one of the most important ones as a leader to ask, because if you're noticing recurring issues like high turnover, low engagement, or stalled progress, it's worth reflecting on your own patterns first. So ask for honest feedback, look at the data, and observe how people respond to you in meetings. Often it's not about blame, but about recognizing where your approach might be unintentionally holding the team back. The good news is, if you're willing to ask this question, you're already on the path to positive change. Question 2, what if my team won't give me honest feedback? Okay, so this is a lot more common than you think. Psychological safety takes time to build, especially if people are used to leaders who don't really want to hear the truth. So start by modeling vulnerability yourself. Share something you're working on or admit to a past mistake. Ask specific open-ended questions and thank people for their honesty, even if it's difficult to hear. Over time, as you consistently show you value their input, your team will begin to open up. Okay, third question. How do I shift from being a doer to being a more strategic leader? It's a classic transition and it's not easy. Start by carving out time each week to step back and look at the big picture. Where are we going? What's working? What's not? Delegate more of the day-to-day tasks and focus your energy on decisions and conversations that move the team forward. Remember, being strategic is a skill you can build. Practice asking higher-level questions, and don't be afraid to seek coaching or mentorship as you grow in your role. All right, this is the last question. What if I try to shift my leadership style and my team resists? That's a really good question. So change can feel unsettling, especially if your team is used to a certain way of working. The goal is to be transparent about why you're making the shift. Share what you're learning and invite them into the process. Ask for their input and what's working and what's not. And remember, consistency is key. So change takes time, but if you stick with it and keep communicating, most teams will eventually come around, especially even when they see the benefits. Again, if you have a question you'd like me to cover in the future episode, don't hesitate to reach out. I read every message and your feedback shapes the show, so it really can make a difference. I also wanted to tell you about a resource. There are a few different resources on my website. They're free resources. If you want a private way to explore your own patterns, you can download the Leadership Pressure Test Worksheet, and that goes along with the Leadership Blind Spot ebook. And those are both on my website. They're free of charge. There's no scam or anything. This is just content I provide to those that subscribe to my website. But there are a number of resources there if you go to the resource page that I think you might find helpful, especially based on this part of the framework that we're looking at for the SHIFT framework. I think the last episode with Jasmine, as well as today with Mike, I think, highlight different points that could be explored further in these worksheets. So take a look at that if you're interested, no pressure. And then I want to just talk through the takeaways. So some of the takeaways I want to focus on as a summary for what we touched on today is start meetings with open questions. So invite team input. That's something that was called out as a key shift and action step to consider. Pause for engagement. So hold back before responding and track who leans in. Build trust. Notice when team members volunteer or disagree. Foster connection. So plan an offsite. Co-create an agenda with the team. It doesn't all have to fall on you as the leader. Reflect and adjust. Review what worked, what didn't, and keep practicing. Keep trying new things. In closing, leadership isn't just about being right. It's about creating the conditions for others to excel. When you shift your patterns, you don't just change your team, you change your business results. And if this episode landed for you, share it with a colleague, download the worksheet, subscribe for more practical leadership insights. And next time we'll talk about 5 new ways to shift. Until then, keep leading with clarity, courage, and curiosity. Thanks for listening. Bukola. If this episode resonated, I'd love to hear from you. You can text or leave a voicemail at 404-828-0279. That's 404-828-0279. Or you can visit me at bukolaogentala.com to send in a question, share your story, or explore coaching and speaking services. Whether you're leading a team or learning to lead yourself, I'm honored to be on this journey with you. And if you haven't already, hit follow or subscribe so we can keep growing together.